The disengagement, India-China disengagement at the LAC is complete, is what sources have said. Sticking to the announced timeline, India and China have completed disengagement in Depsang and Demchok regions of Eastern Ladakh, and patrolling will begin soon, is what Army sources have said, adding that tomorrow sweets will also be exchanged with troops from the Chinese side on Diwali. Sources in the Indian Army shared this information. Addressing reporters later, the Chinese ambassador said that the two countries had reached a point of common understanding.
The two leaders have reached many important understandings that will be the guidelines for the further development of our relations of our two countries. And I just hope that under the guidance of this consensus, our relations will be moving forward smoothly in the future, and our relations will not be restricted or interrupted by specific disagreements between our two sides. Because as two neighboring countries, it's quite natural we have some differences. The most important thing is how to handle and solve these differences. I think this is very important. Now the two leaders, their meetings have set a very good example for us how to handle these differences. I'm also looking forward to direct flights so that I can fly back to Beijing directly.
All right, the ambassador is saying he's looking forward to direct flights to China. Well, let's go across to Vishnu now for more. And Vishnu, so the disengagement is complete. When can we expect the patrolling to begin?
So that's going to be decided by relatively young officers of the rank of brigadier and below. So the soldiers who are actually on the ground will be deciding when they are in a position to start moving, now that that disengagement process is over and the physical verification has taken place. What do we mean by disengagement in this context? Well, those places where the Chinese had put in reinforced positions or tents or tarpaulins or anything of that sort and were physically blocking Indian soldiers from moving to our patrol positions, which they had denied us access to from 2020, those soldiers have moved back, and we've done the same on our side. And we're talking about the Depsang area, which lies to the north of Ladakh, and we're talking about the Demchok area, which lies to the south of Ladakh near Himachal Pradesh. So it's in these two areas where there's been this breakthrough. But when I asked my army sources when soldiers would physically go back, they said soon. So it could be any time now.
This means soldiers who were forward deployed since after the 2020 clashes will now withdraw?
So that's it. It's just restricted to that. And I think it's important that we use the word forward deployed. This is not India and China moving back their forces lock, stock and barrel. No side would do that. But it's just those soldiers who were in an eyeball to eyeball situation or in very close proximity to one another and were preventing the movement of the other side, something which arose as a result of the clashes in 2020 in Galwan when several Indian soldiers and Chinese soldiers lost their lives. It's just those forward soldiers who are moving aside. They'll be moving aside, they'll be separating by a certain number of kilometers. That distance has not been specified to us, so that patrolling can actually take place. So while those soldiers are redeployed, it's not as if the larger number of soldiers, and we've got approximately 50,000 soldiers on either side, in a lot of new infrastructure which has come up in altitudes up to 16,000, 17,000 feet, who would all move back. Now that will not take place. That level of trust would perhaps be the next or the eventual step between India and China.
Right, and finally, Vishnu, this is the first step in, normalizing relations between India and China that have been strained ever since the clashes that took place. And we can expect once the disengagement and once patrolling is normalized there, we can expect more steps for normalization of relations. As the Chinese ambassador was joking, he looks forward to taking a direct flight to Beijing sometime soon.
I think he was very measured and cautious with his language. He didn't laud the agreement which had been reached. He didn't refer to the resumption of patrolling. He did speak, of course, of the resumption of air travel, and that would be a great thing, India and China, two large Asian nations. But he was cautious in what he said. He did mention that there were differences which needed to be worked out or dealt with. So I think the sense now in the External Affairs Ministry, which is the nodal ministry which deals with China, and of course the Indian Army on the ground, is fingers crossed. We've taken some important first steps. They are big first steps. But whether this results in something more profound, something more lasting, is something we'll all have to wait and see.
All right. Thanks so much, Vishnu, for joining us with all those latest developments.